Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. In this video here, we're going to be speaking about vocabulary learning strategies. So vocabulary learning strategies are pretty much strategies that a learner can use to learn vocabulary and to help him or her in learning vocabulary. Now, vocabulary is the most important language skill that someone needs to understand, according to a lot of second language acquisition scholars, because that's the thing that really makes up the language, and that's the thing that the learner is continuously going to be learning. Grammar, we don't carry around grammar books as second language learners, but what we do carry around usually is dictionaries. What we're continuously always learning is usually vocabulary, is usually words, but not necessarily grammar or syntax or any of those other things. So vocabulary is really the most important thing. It's the thing that you're continuously going to be doing throughout your journey of learning a language. So you should try to make sure that you understand how to properly go about learning vocabulary. And hopefully this video will help you in understanding that. So let's go ahead and start. So what are some vocabulary learning strategies that we can use? Now, a lot of different strategies have been theorized throughout the years. This is just one strategy, but there's others out there. But this, inshallah, is one that I find to be very useful, and that's why I'm explaining it here. So pretty much when you look at vocabulary learning strategies, can be broken down into two different categories. There are discovery strategies and there are consolidation strategies. Discovery strategies are strategies that are used to discover new words, to discover new words and to discover the meaning of the word. So how do I go about, me as a second language learner, how do I go about discovering new words and how do I go about discovering their meaning? You can do guessing, you can ask, and you can use dictionary. And we're going to go into details on each point. Okay, now after I've actually learned the meaning of a word, so let's say, for example, I'm learning the word or I'm reading Arabic and I come across the word hammam. Okay, hammam. What does hammam mean? Those are discovery strategies. I'm going to use my discovery strategies to figure out what the word hammam means. After I've learned that the word hammam means a bathroom or restroom, after that, I need now to actually memorize that. I need to actually keep that idea of hammam, which means bathroom, in my head. I need to make sure that I consolidate this knowledge of the word hammam. How do I do that? Consolidation strategies are what I'm going to use. So note taking, memorization, and practice. So let's start with discovery strategies. So let's say, for example, I'm learning a language, whether it be French or Arabic or Persian, whatever the case may be, and I come across a word I don't know. How am I going to figure out, how am I going to discover the meaning of that word? Well, I pretty much have three options. I can guess the meaning. Okay, and according to Paul Nation, who's an expert in the field or was an expert in the field of second language acquisition, specifically vocabulary, guessing is actually the most useful tool because the one that's the fastest, it takes the less effort in general sense, and he keeps you in the flow of whatever you're doing. So guessing is a great tool, and we're going to explain how you should go about trying to guess the meaning of a word. Now, that being said, when you're starting to learn a language, guessing is probably not the best option because you don't have enough vocabulary to be able to have an accurate guess. But guessing is a great tactic. Okay, so I'm reading a sentence, I come across a word I don't know. I look at the context of the sentence, I look at the words that come around it, and I think, I think the word hammam maybe means something along the lines of bathroom or restroom or something like that. That's a great tactic, and we're going to explain certain ways to help us in our guessing. The second thing I can do to try to figure out the meaning of the word hammam, to discover the meaning, is by asking. So if I'm in the classroom, I'll ask my teacher. I'll say, Yo Sheikh or Ustad, what's the meaning of the word hammam? Right? Or I can ask a colleague, or I can ask my friend who's a native Arabic speaker. So that's another tactic I can use when I come across a word I don't know. The third tactic that I can use when I come across a word that I don't know is using the dictionary. Okay, now there are a lot of different dictionaries out there for various different languages. For Arabic, I have a specific video where I explain 3 great digital dictionaries that you can use. So you go into the dictionary and you find out what's the meaning of the word. And now using as dictionary is also something that you're going to have to become familiar with because there's different dictionaries out there. There are monolingual dictionaries, there are bilingual dictionaries. There are some dictionaries that only deal with synonyms. There are some dictionaries that go into a lot of details, some that go into a lesser degree of details. So you need to make sure that you use a dictionary that is appropriate for your level. So go use a dictionary when you're starting to learn a language. Go use a dictionary that is easy to carry, not something that's huge, right? So usually, ideally nowadays would be some type of app, and make sure that that app, it doesn't give you so much information that it just turns you away from trying to actually learn the word because you just feel information overload. And I had a video for specifically Arabic language where I explained 3 different dictionaries that I recommend you use. And I'll put in the description below that video for those 3 dictionaries. So these are discovery strategies. So you can always guess, and we're going to explain how to guess. there's always asking, and there's also using the dictionary, and you have to become familiar with using dictionaries. You should always have a dictionary with you as a second language learner. Now, how should you go about guessing a word, right? How do you guess the meaning of a word? Well, there's pretty much two ways to do it that you do. The first thing, that you understand the general meaning of the story or the subject or the paragraph or the sentence. So I'm reading a story about a child story, for example, because I'm just trying to start learning to read the language. I'm reading a story about a hunter in the woods. So I know that this story here is talking about a forest. It's talking about animals that you find in the forest. It's talking about things that a hunter does. It's talking about maybe objects or tools or weapons that a hunter uses. This is the story. So I know that the words that are going to be used are words that are going to be dealing with that subject. So that narrows down my guessing options. Then after that, I also look at the paragraph. Right now, I'm in the second paragraph where this hunter just started hunting for the prey. So I know I'm going to be maybe looking for words like chasing, looking, maybe even, tracking, words like this, but in the second language that I'm learning. So I know what type of words that I'm most likely going to be coming across in this paragraph because I know the general understanding of the story and a general understanding of where I am in that story. Then after that, the sentence itself. So I come across a sentence. In that sentence, there's one word I don't know. Okay, what is the sentence talking about? At the beginning, it was mentioning that he was running. Okay, then maybe we're talking about, looking. Maybe now he's looking at the animal. So I have to understand the general meaning of the story, the subject, whether it be, if it's a subject like engineering or mathematics, something like that, the paragraph that I'm reading, and then also the sentence itself. I'll take that all into consideration before I do my guess to narrow down my options. Then the second thing I need to do is I need to look at the words that precedes it and follows it. So I have a word in the sentence. I don't know the meaning of the word. I'm trying to guess it. I've already understood the general meaning of the story, the subject, and the paragraph in the sentence. Now, this word itself, what's the word that comes before it and what's the word that comes after it? If the word that comes before it is a verb, then I know that most likely for Arabic example, if I know that the word that precedes this word that I'm trying to figure out is a verb, I know most likely that word is not a verb. Because if it was a verb, two verbs don't come back to back in the Arabic language. That's very strange. So these are different tactics that I can use. So I'll look at the word that comes before it, I'll look at the word that comes after it, and then I'll try to give an appropriate guess to what this word means based on the context and based on the words that come around it. So that's pretty much how you guess the meaning of a word. But this does require you to be fairly proficient in the language, to the sense that you have enough vocabulary to actually understand the subject, to understand the paragraph, to understand the sentence, and there's just a few words that you're missing the meaning of. So that is how you guess. Okay. So now that we understood discovery strategies, how to guess, you can always ask your colleague, ask your friend, ask the teacher. You can always use a dictionary, but you have to be careful which dictionary you use. And specifically for us, I have a video on that. Now, after that, you have to go to the consolidation strategies. So once I understood that the word here was hammam, let's go back to the word hammam. Once I know now that the word here was hammam, which means, you know, or to use the hunting example, let's say now I figure out that the word that I was looking for was qaid, and qaid means shackles. So that was the word. So the hunter was putting the animal in shackles, for example. So now I know that the word qaydun and quyud, which is the plural in Arabic, means shackles. How do I now memorize that word? How do I now consolidate that knowledge of that word? Well, I have three strategies. The first strategy is note taking. So as a second language learner, you should try to make sure that you have some type of notebook where you write down vocabulary words. So once now that I figured out that the word qaydun means shackles, I have my notebook, my vocabulary notebook, and I'm going to write down the word qaydun in Arabic. And next to it, I'm going to put shackle. Okay. Then you know what? I'm going to say, instead of just doing that, let me go and look at the plural version of the word, because we know in Arabic, words have a different plural form. So I look in the dictionary and I find out the word qaydun, the plural of it is quyud. So I'm going to write that in my notebook. Plural form, quyud. Then, okay, how do I use that word? I'm also going to write down in my notebook the example sentence that's in the dictionary, or better yet, the example sentence that was used in the story I was reading. So I'm going to use the word in a sentence. So I can write all that in my notebook, and that will help me in consolidating that knowledge. And with my notebook, I can always use it as review. The act of actually writing down the word itself will help me in remembering it. So that's one tactic you can use. That's one strategy you can use to make sure to remember the word. Second strategy is memorization. So once I have this word in my notebook, after that, I can try to memorize it. Or better yet, I can do everything I just did in Anki. So I can use an app like Anki or Quizlet or whatever app you like to use. And I can add the word qaydun in. I can add that it means shackles, its plural form is quyud, and so on and so forth. And then later on, every single morning, I memorize 5 Arabic words. And sooner or later, I'm gonna come across that word in my Anki deck or my Quizlet deck, and I'll memorize it. Okay, so that's another tactic you can use. Then the third tool, and this actually I would say probably the most important one, is that I actually practice the word. So I make sure that if I'm ever in a situation where I can use the word qaydun in a sentence, so I'm speaking to an Arabic speaker, I'm going to make sure to practice it. Or if I'm writing something, I'm going to write the word qayd. So I try my best to find scenarios where I'm going to be able to practice the vocabulary that I'm learning. Vocabulary is words are supposed to be used, and if you don't use them, you're going to lose them. So you have to make sure that you actively use the vocabulary that you're learning, whether it be in writing or whether it be in speaking, which are the two productive skills in Arabic or in a language. So you have to make sure that you're then actually practicing the vocabulary that you're using, or else you're most likely going to forget it. So try your best to put yourself in situations where you're going to be learning, you're going to be using the vocabulary that you're learning, whether it be in speaking or in writing. So these are the two vocabulary strategies, the strategies to actually discover and to understand the meaning of a word, and then strategies to consolidate and to remember the meaning of those words. So that in a brief sense is some vocabulary learning strategies. I hope this was clear. If anybody has any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for listening.